All right. Happy Wednesday. Hope you guys well, it's Wednesday. Not Wednesday. It's Monday. I don't even know what day it is. It was a long day. It was a long weekend. Hope you guys had a good Easter. It's one of those days. Good start to the week, though. A lot of big news going on, especially when it comes to crypto. Market action is neutral. It's hanging out sideways, which is okay. I think we've bottomed based on what I can tell, and I think things are going to move significantly higher. You've got the dollar breaking down, the lowest it's been in 3 years since 2022. DXY sits at a 98. The yen is appreciating against the dollar pretty quickly here, so we've got back at 140, which is the danger zone for where the reverse carry trade can start to unwind. And we saw that back last year in August. I think it was like August 13th, 14th, 5th, somewhere in there. Anyway, we had 13% down in the S&P. We've started to see stocks bleed over the last month here and continue to the downside. I don't know if that's going to turn around or not. We could see a springboard here as the dollar continues to free fall. I don't know what the move is going to be for people to move back to risk on, but I feel like that's coming. I think that you're going to see breadth open up in the stock market and also in, I don't know that it'll be in large cap stocks, but in small cap stocks, as well as crypto. Looks like it's bottom. Technicals show that. I'm not a TA guy, but I follow a lot of TA guys, and they seem to think that we are poised for moves higher in the market. I do not think that the dollar is going to turn around here. I think that it is poised to go lower. And I do think that that causes the reverse carry trade to start to unwind again. The only way that it doesn't is if the Bank of Japan prints some money. And they have announced that they are going to meet with U.S. Treasury tomorrow to discuss problems in the FX market, which we all know what that means. That means that things are about to get serious when it comes to the reverse carry trade. You've got a lot of pivotal things happening today on Easter Monday. You've got Pope Francis passing away this morning. God rest his soul. 88 years old. Big change there at the Vatican. You also have Klaus Schwab backing down, is resigning from running the WEF, the World Economic Forum. He's stepping down this morning as well. So some big power moves, some big change in regime happening. Some gaps that need to be filled now open. You also have Paul Adkins confirmed today as the head of the SEC. He's now the chair, moved into position. So everything's locked and loaded, ready for really just kind of a whole change of the financial system here. You've got basically everything that was impeding XRP and the change in regime no longer in power. We have the new administration here in the U.S. Regulation is set and poised to be bipartisan for the stablecoin bill. You saw Circle's announcement today. Big announcement for their payments network, the integration with the VASPs and the other parties for USDC to be able to be used globally on their payment network. Big deal. They have USDC issued on Hyperledger, on Polygon, Matic, Tron. There's a lot of networks that move USDC. It's probably the most prevalently used stablecoin besides Tether. You've also got some ominous news coming out about Tether and potential fraud with Bitfinex. Not making any claims, just hearsay. I don't know what's going to come of it. This is not, me stating that there was fraud or anything bad. I'm just news that's out there. You do with it what you will. I don't know. But we've talked about a long time coming that Tether would likely end up sanctioned, and not for any necessary wrongdoing, but because they wouldn't be able to be compliant with the U.S. regulation or MiCA, which they've already removed themselves from most of the EU. And then they also have, moved offshore down to El Salvador which is very pro Bitcoin. They continue to buy Bitcoin even in the face of what's going on with the price dropping. Same thing with Michael Saylor propping it up. Tether did mint another billion Tether the other day, but they've talked about issuing a new stable coin that would be compliant with U.S. regulation because they can't make Tether compliant. There's Bitcoin on their balance sheet that's currently locked up in litigation with Celsius. So even if they're squeaky clean everywhere else, they won't be able to divest from that Bitcoin and make themselves compliant here in the U.S. to be able to participate. Now there's hearsay, and we've talked to MasterCard, Visa, and other parties that have de-risked from Tether and other jurisdictions, and here domestically in the U.S. And they stated that they wouldn't be affiliated with Tether, they wouldn't transact in Tether. That tells me that there's some potential illicit activity going on in that network. Again, just hearsay, not making any comments or claims stating that that's going on, just stuff that makes you go, think about stuff. Appreciate it. Says love the new haircut. Appreciate it. Actually, I hadn't got a haircut. I'm going to go get a haircut tomorrow because we have our event this week. So another big thing coming up. A lot of things happening this week. We have our event here on the 24th. All of our sponsors were posted there on Twitter or X just a little bit earlier, along with a few of the other channels that we have, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, those. So obviously our companies are sponsoring Digital Ascension Group and Digital Wealth Partners. We also have Constellation, DAG, we have XDC, we have Compliers, we have Algos, we have Anchorage Digital, and many others speaking on stage there with us this Thursday. The premier family office event that we're hosting here in Dallas. It's the second one that we've done. First one was last year in September, had, somewhere around 210 people attend, family offices, high net worth individuals, VCs, all the investment banks, BNY, Goldman, Fidelity, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and many others. Citi, they're in the room. They should be back again this time. And we will have close to 300 people participating this time here in April. Few of the people that we're hoping to sponsor have a conflicting event. You can't ever, get everybody, but excited to have the people that we have there in the room come and chat. We have a lot of different panels. Institutions meet DeFi, what to do if you are defrauded in crypto. We have a really good panel on that. We've got legal and compliance headed up by it's moderated by Lee Bratcher from the Texas Blockchain Council, also a sponsor. Shout out to them for participating in the event. Anyway, I'm just really proud of all the people that are going to come together and present on stage here in Dallas, and we will have all of that for you guys. If you're part of the mastermind, you'll get exclusive rights to those videos or the ability to review those videos and all of the talks that we have on stage there. And we'll put out snippets for other people there on YouTube. Some of the cool stuff, that's stated. But all the exclusive content will be for mastermind members. If you want to be a part of the community, we will actually have an event the day before, also here in Dallas, if you guys want to participate in that. We have like 150 people registered, which is wild. It's going to be at a car shop. I won't say which one, here in Dallas. Pretty cool place to be. Bugattis, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Aston Martins, and the like, overlooking that from the terrace, which is where we will be and where we've rented out for the mastermind members. 2 free drinks for all the mastermind members. So if you do want to be a part of that community and attend that here in Dallas this week, you're more than welcome to. You can just join at the website up here, beyondbroke.com, and you can check it out and you can get in for free because for 1 month you can join the group all free. The code is beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you a free month there in the group. You can check it out for Carbon One or Social. We also have lending, Arch Lending, for people that are Carbon One. If you want to borrow against your XRP, we have an exclusive agreement with them. Same thing that we do over there at Digital Wealth Partners. So lots of cool things happening this week. Big week here in crypto. I think we're in for some volatility now that everything's ready and set for launch. Hopefully the reverse carry trade isn't too scary for people when it unwinds, but I have a feeling people are not ready. Gold. We'll talk about gold real quick before we hop into the questions here. Still reaching for new all-time highs today. Risk off is big right now. Treasuries are big. I think that's going to swap. I think that you're going to see a move to risk on. I don't know if that comes from the Fed lowering interest rates. I don't know if that comes from somehow Trump really actually does fire Jerome Powell. I don't think he can do that. So just so you guys know, the Fed is not affiliated with the government. It's a separate entity. It is not federal, nor is it a reserve. It is a private corporation that prints our money separate of our government. Not the Treasury that prints the U.S. dollar as it currently exists. So yeah, Baby Rico says nope, he can't. Yeah, he can't fire him. It's a separate corporation. J.P. Morgan and the boys would have to be the ones to remove Jerome if they wanted to. So we'll see what lever they pull. But it could be that they just increase the velocity of money across the economy by implementing some of these digital assets at scale. That would be another lever that they haven't ever pulled before, but would be exciting to see. And they would have to significantly reduce M2 money supply if they did that to keep from hyperinflation from happening. Because those are the two things that you have for inflation. You have the velocity of money across the economy, and then you have the total M2 money supply, which is at an all-time high across all economies. But I think that that's going to come crashing back down as they implement this stuff. If you knew that there was going to be a deflationary collapse, you would front run it with all of this fiat money. So I think that's what they've done. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and hop into the questions here. Everything's fair game if you want to run it down. We'll start with the super chats over here on Twitter. We've got TLC 2082. They say, if Tether gets delisted, what happens? What will happen to futures trades and funds on platforms like BTCC? Thanks for all that you do. They would become illiquid. It would be very bad. It would be a systemic crisis across all exchanges that still use Tether as their primary liquidity provider and mechanism. Bitfinex would have a big problem. But, you can kind of look back at, the Shane Ellis theory where he talks about Bitfinex specifically and using XRP to fill that gap and what they would have to do with it. And that's where 589 actually comes from, if you want to go check that out. So, there's definitely a credit crunch or a credit crisis coming, ICE 9 type event, potentially even in crypto. And to your point, futures trades would have some problems. I don't know if you've ever tried to trade large amounts in anything other than Tether. The friction and the slippage and the volume is just not there for larger trades for any other stablecoin besides Tether or USDT. So if that were to go away, I know there's a lot of people that are hopeful they'd be able to buy big bags if everything dropped. You're going to have a hard time filling those orders, especially if they're large ones. A couple more. Well, we'll hit up Old Atlantic Living. They always are here, and we want to make sure that they get their questions answered. They say, what is the continued holdup on getting XDC on the main exchanges? Also, what features do you like best about Tangent Wallet? It's two good questions. I think more people just need to request it on whatever exchanges it's not listed on. It's literally that simple. If there's demand and people want it, and they reach out to the exchange, that's how we got DAG listed in a couple different places. It's literally just people reaching out and saying, hey, I want this asset traded. Please add it to the platform, and they will do it. XDC is not difficult. It is a little bit of a lift because it's an XRC20 token. They migrated from an ERC20 token. If it was still, it's still EVM compatible. It's not a huge lift for most exchanges to list the token and be interoperable with the network. I would just have people around you that want that reach out to the exchange and push them along, and they will list it. Features do I like best about Tangent Wallet? I like the Tangent card, if I'm being honest. I've used it alongside of the Zaman wallet, or it used to be Zum app that we'd say Win had. And I really like the fact that, nobody ever sees your keys. You can have a backup card. I think Tangent does a good job with their UI in their wallet and the amount of assets that they list and hold. I think that they're, a good way that you can hold assets, and the card is probably my favorite piece of that. We got Alex. He says, hey, Jake, thanks for the live. Could you tell us what you can't say about XRP without really telling us? Cheers. XRP will be a tier 1 asset designated by the BIS at some point in the future. It'll be the global reserve bridge currency, global liquidity asset, lender of last resort. Yeah, I mean, I can say all that. That is my belief based on conversations I've had. There's not any NDAs that prevent me from stating that. There's never, and I'll just say this, there's never been somebody that's explicitly said those words to me. Okay. We've talked to Ripple, we've talked to R3, we've talked to Visa, MasterCard, large banks, Bank of America. There's lots of people, right? And depending on who you're talking to at some of those institutions, they don't even know what's going on. They don't know about the technology. I've got a cousin that works and implements systems for Citi and Goldman and has built installed the rails for Santander and interoperability with some of the other stuff that they do. And he did not realize that they had any interoperability or settlement mechanism or ability to settle through digital assets. They just know the systems, right? Like, oh, we're upgrading systems, they'll be able to settle real time. It's going to be awesome. Like, that's how they think about it. They don't even think about blockchain or which assets or any of those things. It's only the people that I've talked to that have seen the back end of things and are very technical that they're like, this is the thing over here, you know. And those people are few and far between. There's a few of them out there. We're actually going to have T's Crypto Spot at the event. First time going to meet him in person. Super excited about that. He's going to be on our technical panel alongside Ben Jorgensen from Constellation and Matt Rosenden from Capsign. So super excited to get him up there talking about all the things that he knows, likes, and loves when it comes to digital assets, XRP, XLM, XDC. And I'm sure he'll bring down the house with what he has to say. So super excited to have T down here in Dallas. And yeah, I think that there may be things said on stage this go round that people would be interested in. We got Crypto Vegas. What's up, man? We got our Vegas event on May 28th there in Vegas, a few days before XRP Vegas and right after Bitcoin 2025. So if you're going to be in Vegas and you're in the mastermind, please reach out. I think we have 102 people going to that event. Capacity for the venue, which I won't say where it is, the night of the 28th, is around 250 people, I think. So going to keep it, kind of low key, pretty exclusive, a couple days before XRP Vegas. So we'll have some big names in the room there. Excited to do that one. Won't be the same format that we're doing here in Dallas. That's invite only for the family offices, but another good event there for the mastermind. Again, alongside the one that we've got here in Dallas this week. 150 people, I think, currently registered for the event here in Dallas. So excited to have them there. And again, if you want to be part of the mastermind, it's just beyondbroke.com, and you can go get a whole free month for first month for social and Carbon One. If you use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, get you a free month there in the group. Baby Rico keeps asking about ZBCN. Don't know anything about it. There's been a few people that have said, David Schwartz has mentioned it a couple times and given it credibility. I don't know, man. I'm not focused on anything that's a tiny market cap or a little niche. Like a lot of people want, I'll get to you, Crypto Vegas. I'm sorry, I'm skipping over this, but I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second. A lot of people talk about Stronghold or Velo or these layer 2s, or they focus in on some hyper niche within payments. Not my game. I want the whole enchilada. I want what's going to be the backbone. I want the things that are going to be settling trillions of dollars in daily volume or more, right? There's not a whole lot of things doing that, right? So the back end of the stock market in the last video I talked about, you got, $500 billion a day settled through that. Between that and derivatives, that's what I'm focused on. I want the behemoth, and that's why I'm invested where I'm invested. I think XRP ends up with that. And if XRP does what I want it to do, then I can look at, these other layer twos or other things that are smaller, more niche use case that will get adoption and have volume. I'm not saying that I'm not bullish on these other tokens or assets. It's not something that I'm not even going to play with. Like I would rather invest in the base networks that are going to be the infrastructure that everything else is going to be built on. Hedera Hashgraph, I think, is one of those. The XRPL, I think, is one of those. Hyperledger, I think, is one of those. Beyond that, there's probably going to be something that does data storage that's interoperable with IPFS. Chainlink is probably the main oracle that's going to be, interoperability between chains with CCIP. Axelar allows for interoperability. The things that are going to aggregate the most volume and transactions, that's where I'm going to be looking, even post price appreciation for XRP. But I'm highly confident that XRP will be the golden goose, and that's why I'm positioned where I'm positioned. So I'll look at that after we see price appreciation for XRP. And I know that sounds like some maxi stuff to say, right? But Joey V says XRP will never replace Swift. It's not going to replace Swift. Swift is going to have to adopt a distributed ledger technology in order to be able to settle real time to compete with people like R3 and RippleNet. Like, they're just going to adopt the XRPL for settlement. They've already got partnerships with Hedera Hashgraph, with Chainlink, with XDC. They just haven't announced it for the XRPL. But that's the base use case, right? Is for exchange between currencies. You need a DEX that swaps one for the other. You need stable coins issued on there. We got Brazil already going to issue their stablecoin on the XRPL. You got Japan that's likely going to issue it on the XRPL. It'll be on the EVM side chain, so let me correct myself, right? Like, people are going to shoot me or persecute me for saying on the XRPL. It won't be on the XRPL. It'll be on a side chain. It'll be on the EVM side chain. Same thing with the digital euro and the digital pound. Like, you got RO, USD. There's the majority of the stablecoins in the future. I am going to say for large transactions and international transactions are going to be issued on the EVM sidechain for the XRPL. We'll see. That's my guess. I could be wrong, but that's my 2 cents, my personal bias. Back to Crypto Vegas here. Sorry, brother. He says, "Hi, Jake. Hope all's well." It is. It's a fantastic Monday after the wonderful holiday. Can we buy crypto in our personal exchange uphold account and transfer it to our Wyoming LLC? Want to get XDC? You absolutely can. So there's going to be people and attorneys that don't deal with this on a regular basis. So most of the time you would need a written consent or written action for continued contributions to your business from your personal name. When you purchase something on your personal account in an exchange, whether that's Uphold, Coinbase, Kraken, Caleb and Brown, wherever you're buying it at, okay? When you transfer it to that wallet owned by the LLC, that serves as a written action or written consent for the contribution of those tokens. Okay, so as long as that LLC is listed in your on your capital contributions page of your operating agreement, and that is what you contributed to the business in order to start it and take the equity in exchange for that in your single member LLC, which is how we set it up. Make sure you're anonymous, all the stuff that we do. You can absolutely continue to add to your positions through the mechanism that you've mentioned here by purchasing in your personal name and then sending it to that wallet. And the reason for that is these are public ledgers. Okay, you can see all the transactions that have gone to that wallet, and you can look at the events or the transactions or whatever it's called in the app that you're using, and you can pull up all of that history, right? Because it's registered right there on the blockchain. It's an immutable ledger. It's an accounting mechanism. So it serves as the written action or written consent for the contributions to the business. So basically the answer is yes. I know that was a lot of lingo and mumbo jumbo and probably more than people wanted. But you can absolutely do that. And if you want to get XDC, you can purchase it there on Uphold. And there's a few other platforms where you can buy XDC. Decent is the wallet that we recommend to hold your XDC on. And again, I think we're just full disclosure. I'm an affiliate. I make like $5 if you buy a wallet through my link, which is awesome. You know, you don't have to buy it through my link if you want to go shop all the other ones. The reason I like Decent is because of the biometric. Use your thumbprint to access it and execute transactions. You can add a 25th seed word, which makes it a little bit more secure than the 24. They get a very large breadth of assets that you can hold on that wallet, and the UI is very user-friendly. Out of all the wallets that I've used, that's why I like that one, right? And again, I think there's a code in this video or on the page somewhere. Like I said, don't even have to use my link if you want to go check it out. Do your own research. You know, there's Arculus, there's Elipal, there's all kinds of air-gapped wallets and Trezors and Ledgers. I don't like Ledger, but outside of that, a lot of them are pretty good. So appreciate the question, and thank you for the super chat. We have a couple more down here. Off the Grid Hero says, a lot of riddlers saying 25th, last time to buy XRP. I don't talk about all the tinfoil hat stuff that I have going on here. I take all that with a grain of salt, but very interesting timing. I think there was something back in like 2020 where the guy said like 4 days after the death of JB, your hero, you know, would be the last time you'd get to buy XRP. Jorge Bjorg, I don't know how to say the last name of the Pope, but those were his initials. We'll see. Also interesting lunar event on the 25th. You have like the smile thing with 2 planets above the moon. Also pretty interesting. We'll see if it comes to anything. You know, I'm looking for real world events. I'm looking for the reverse carry trade to unwind. We're right on the precipice of that. We've got Japan talking with the US tomorrow. We've got the new SEC chair confirmed. We've got a change in guard for the Vatican and the World Economic Forum. Very pivotal moment in time here. And like I said, I think the way that they end up saving this system is moving it over to blockchain to accelerate the settlement times and velocity of money. And then they can significantly reduce into money supply and kind of de-risk some of the stuff that's going on while getting, you know, actual GDP and growth in the economies when they implement this. So I think we're right here. You know, maybe there are riddlers and they know what the timing of things are. You got TCBR supposed to explode. There's all kinds of stuff out there, but I'm watching real world events that are going to transpire, and that's what I'm predicating my thesis on. And if those other things happen to coincide with that, maybe there definitely are people out there that know more than me. But I'm watching the real world stuff. We got Amber. They say, thank you for these videos. I know you always say you don't have a crystal ball, but, oh, there's the but. Do you still suspect utility for XRP to kick in this year? There's predicated things that have to happen. There's events that have to happen. But yes, if those things transpire, you could absolutely see things kick in this year. And I think that they will. I don't think there's any way that they can continue to kick the can. And that's the reason I think it'll happen this year. You have a global credit call coming. And if they don't use this mechanism, but what I just talked about to accelerate the velocity of money, kind of kickstart the economy, they've front run it with all the inflation that they have. If you were anticipating a deflationary collapse, that's what you would do. There's just a lot of things that culminate to the perfect storm for the implementation of this stuff here in 2025. And if you guys don't follow me on Twitter, I posted a visual the other day that a lot of people were like, oh, it's fake. It's from a presentation that R3 gave in 2018, okay? Whether they're right or wrong about how Interledger works or they simplified it or whatever you want to say, Corda, Hyperledger, all of the companies that they listed there, along with the banks and institutions and the interoperability with the XRP ledger to settle those transactions, it's not a fallacy. And the time frame that they had for the implementation of that just happened to be 2020 to 2025, which is, you know, just happens to be pretty interesting timing here. This person's asked me to explain the reverse carry trade. Yeah, I can. So I kind of run that down here for you, Amber. Yeah, I 99.99999% sure that we see utility for XRP this year in 2025. Can I explain the reverse carry trade? Absolutely. So I've done this a couple different times, but maybe I'll try to take a different angle. So Japan has had super low interest rates for the past 20 plus years, all negative at times. They would pay you to borrow money. As crazy as that sounds, that's what they try to do to stimulate their economy. So people took advantage of that. If you had good credit and you could go over there and you could borrow from the Bank of Japan, you did it because it's free money. Why wouldn't you? You could take that money and go earn a risk-free return in U.S. treasuries, buy up all these treasuries with billions of dollars that you borrowed and earn 3 to 5% on it every year. Hell yeah. Why wouldn't you do that? Like if you knew how to do it, you would have done it too, right? But now all of that is coming home to roost because a lot of these were variable rate. You got different ends of the yield curve that people purchased that debt on. And a lot of that's coming due. And now they've raised interest rates. So if you go to refinance stuff, like I'm sure you guys are aware, like imagine you borrowed to buy your home at 3%, and now you're going to try to refinance it at 7%. That doesn't work. That math doesn't work, that math, right? So that's what a lot of people are having to do with the debt that they borrowed from Japan is try to refinance it at higher interest rates. And they need a spread. They need the returns that they're generating in U.S. markets and treasuries and in other areas to continue to be enough of a buffer that they don't have to call all that capital and pay it all back. And that's what happened in August last year. A ton of people called all that capital all at one time, pulled it out of the market, swapped it for dollars, swapped it for yen, and paid back those loans because they saw the Bank of Japan aggressively raising interest rates. We've seen some of the steam come off that now, around 1.5 for the 10-year yield. There in Japan was the danger zone. I talk about the danger zone for the yen versus the dollar around 140. I think that we're close. Like we're precariously close to them not being able to fix this. Bank of Japan has inflation higher than they can really handle for their economy, higher than their mandate, just like our bank, our central bank is required to hold inflation at around 2%. Their inflation's over 3% year over year. And so they need to raise interest rates to quell that. And they can't, because if they do, it crashes the global economy. And they're like, how do we walk this line here? And I think XRP again fixes all of this. That's what I'm talking about. So when people, go to cash out and people run for the door for the reverse carry trade, they're going to liquidate positions across all markets. It will not matter. Everything will crash. Gold, silver, treasuries, stocks, bonds. It won't matter. Everything, crypto, all of it will bleed. And you've already started to see that. You've already started to see stocks sell off because people know it's coming. They are de-risking from these positions. They are swapping it back for dollars, and they're repaying their loans before the fat lady sings. Okay. And the fat lady's going to sing on this deal, and you will know when it happens. It will be a straight line for the door. And there will be a limit down, and there will be a credit crisis across all markets. And you will need something to settle the back end of the stock market real time, like Project Ion using R3 and Corda and settling through XRP for the investment banks to de-risk from all the other stuff and basically get into cash real time without, the clearinghouse is collapsing. So anyway, that's what's coming. That's why the reverse carry trade alongside Tether and the other things I mentioned earlier just exacerbate the need for something to settle real time for global markets. And, now that Ripple's acquired a clearinghouse, Hidden Road, and they can settle transactions globally, similar to Swift. With that, they can provide margin and credit. They can do basically everything that a clearinghouse does or a prime broker does. They're finalizing that transaction. Same thing with the broker dealer that they acquired. There's some lead time or lag time on that because you have an change of control is what that's called when you purchase a broker dealer. You got to list that and change those people with your FINRA and SEC registration. It's not just an easy thing. It's a 6-month deal or longer when you purchase a broker dealer. So prime broker, I don't know how seamless that is. I don't know how far along in the process they are in that acquisition. They might almost be done with it when they announced it. So anyway, there's a lot to that. But with that acquisition and what they're doing, they're basically cornering Swift and they're cornering the other clearinghouses to make them use XRP to settle, because if they start doing it and other people don't, they're going to be the go-to solution and provider. And all of the other people already have the option. So in order to compete and stay competitive and relevant, they're going to have to use it as well. So all that's coming. And that's why I think here in 2025, we might see some of those large numbers. And you got to have the ETFs. That's the other piece. You got to have huge liquidity inflows to cause the supply shock in XRP. So again, everything's lined up, perfect storm. We got the new SEC chair. He can approve those ETFs for XRP now that he's in the seat, and the Ripple case can completely be settled and, wiped. Just everything is finally lined up here 5 years later for people that have been around since 2020, and even longer for people that have been here since 2018 or 2017. I applaud you folks. There's a lot of people that I know that are good, genuine people that want to help a lot of people. And I think 2025 is their year. Matt Teresos has a go. Have a go. He said, "Thank you and your team for what you do. Don't forget to like and subscribe and join the mastermind, people." Thank you, brother. Appreciate the kind words. I don't say it enough. If you are getting value from this content, if you're enjoying over here on TikTok, if you're here on X or on YouTube, please do what he says. If you would like, subscribe, share with a friend. It does help the algorithm. And we make a little bit of money on this, but I do this because I really do enjoy it. I get a lot of fulfillment from answering questions and running things down with you guys. I've done it for years. I started doing these on Twitter in 2021. So it's been 4 years of doing lives or spaces or other stuff like this. And I'll always do it. I really do enjoy these. Alfredo says, "Hola, what's up, man?" He says, "Was thinking of taking my XRP out in kind from iTrust. I know you did that before." Yes, I did. "Are there a bunch of taxes then out? Do you remember how much?" It's about 20%. Is the fees that they charge you plus the taxes. So it's pretty steep. If you take it in kind, you don't have the cash to pay the taxes or fees, and you just tell them, "Hey, I'm going to pay these later." For me, it was worth it. I made enough money on the XRP, on the price appreciation, to be able to cover that. And if you think that, here's the deal for me. If you got it in an IRA, you're really handcuffed on what you can do with the money. Can't borrow against it. It's hard to earn a return. If you do earn returns, those have to go into a side pot. And that side pot is something you can borrow against and do stuff with. But the initial capital that you contributed can't be touched until you're 59 and a half without taking fees and taxes. They're just, So if you're not like in your 50s holding crypto in an IRA, it's not financial advice. So I can't tell you what's best for you and your family. You should consult with a financial advisor, which we have. You can talk to our financial advisors at Digital Wealth Partners if you want to go to digitalwealthpartners.net. We have an SEC registered RIA that can provide you financial advice on this exact topic and tell you what to do. I can't. I can only tell you that it was worth it for me to take it out in kind when it was much lower price than it is today. So just my story. And again, I can't tell you what to do. Otherwise, I would be providing financial advice. And that's what Digital Wealth Partners does. I am not a financial advisor. Honest Aim, how are you, sir? Appreciate you. He says, "I posted in Carbon 2 today. Fred Recipoli's board approved Capital One manager with Discover Financial. Do you think it's consolidation of small players grabbing pieces to complete the big guys? Thanks for all that you do." Yeah, Capital One's merger with Discover Financial. So I think 2025, if it's not the year, well, it'll definitely be the year of some price appreciation and utility for digital assets. But aside from that, for me, it's the year of acquisitions. I think this year you're probably going to see more mergers and acquisitions, M&A plays, gobbling up crypto companies, and strategic investments in crypto companies, because these legacy providers really they're kind of late to the party and they have enough money to do it, right? I think that you're going to see a lot of exchanges get purchased here in 2025. Love from Jamaica. That's awesome. Glad to see international people on here. It's super cool. But yeah, here in 2025, mergers and acquisitions, I think, is going to be a big play for a lot of these institutions. Fidelity has their own digital assets division. So does Goldman. Actually talking to both of them. So I don't know. Maybe they build their own thing, but I think a lot of them are missing some core functionality that a lot of these exchanges have, and they've just kind of like kept that off to the side because they didn't know how regs were going to work out, and they knew that they had the money to purchase them. So I think you're going to see a lot of, I don't want to say backroom deals, but deals come out of the woodwork this year for the little guys being bought up by the institutional players, to your point. And appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you guys this week here in Dallas. We've got Wayne. He says, can you explain what drives the XRP price up? Crypto seems to work like stocks, even though it's not considered a security. Some cryptos that are security. We don't follow the stock market. We didn't follow the stock market down today. Decoupling, maybe. Possibly. Yeah. So they don't always follow in tandem, but they are highly correlated, right? So one day isn't going to make or break anything. You could have stocks up and crypto down. That's happened plenty of times. But over longer periods of times, over a quarter, over 6 months, over a year, these do tend to move in tandem because they're both risk-on assets. Potentially decoupling, that'd be great. So the majority of large cap stocks are moving down because that's where the majority of liquidity has been put to work. I think you might see a spike in the Russell 2000, like low cap stocks. If we did see a pivot by the Fed tomorrow or this week, if they came out and lowered interest rates like Trump wants, I think you would see a move, from gold and treasuries into risk on assets, and you'd see things kind of melt up. Or again, if they just, you have the reverse carry trade melts everything down, you'll have a big rebound. I think up and to the right over the long term is still the thesis, but volatility in the short term is for sure on track as well. So what drives the price of XRP exclusively? Up for almost all of crypto is speculative. There's really not much institutional purchasing or really much utility at all. I can tell you what drives XRP's price down, and that is Ripple selling XRP onto the market or other parties selling XRP onto the market for liquidity. The sustained volume that we've seen here at $2 is caused by TWAP and VWAP. So as these institutions move into the market and they need the backing or the XRP to support their spot ETFs, they are aggregating that. They're buying into the market, but they're not doing that in a large, big way where it's visible for people. So TWAP or VWAP is going to be time-weighted volume average. So if you had 50 million, $100 million, and you wanted to average into a market, you would do that over a month or 2 months. And you would work with a provider that can get you the best prices. So they will average in every single day and try to snipe the bottoms, and they would only buy enough to move it back to their target price. And then they would continue to follow things along so that they could get you the best price over that term. And then they make a spread there. If they do better than the average, then they take the upside. So that's why you've seen sustained buy volume for XRP, and it hasn't fallen like the majority of the other assets in crypto because there is demand from institutions, and they are buying through exchanges and other means. It's just not extremely visible. OTC also. But that's what's caused price appreciation at this point. The times in the past where XRP has moved violently to the upside has either been announcements on things and then been dampened down from the Ripple case, or in 2017 when they locked up the escrow. That's when there was a supply shock for XRP, and that's what caused it to go on the bull run in 2017, 2018. And I think that's what you're going to get again. I think that there's going to be a circumstance where XRP is bought up off the market in extreme volumes because of a supply shock for people wanting to hold it and use it. I don't know that it's going to be available for retail over the long term. Again, speculating there, but I, buying as much as I can while I can. I think $2 is still a pretty fair price, especially for where it's going. Not financial advice, just my personal opinion. Just some guy on YouTube. Can't give you financial advice. So anyway, right now it's just speculation and some institutional purchase for the back end settlement, or not settlement, but support for the spot ETFs. Now, when we see a supply shock for many reasons, it could be because of Bitfinex and their problems with Tether or sanctions, or could be the need to settle the back end of the stock market or the ETFs. All of those things could culminate in the perfect storm where there's a huge supply shock for XRP all at one time, which is kind of what I think is going to happen. But that would be what would cause price to go beyond where it is, because retail is not going to drive it above its all-time high. There's already more on the market now than there was back then. And there's not enough liquidity moving into XRP in a strong enough way. And you don't have the rest of the market going with it either. If you saw a rotation from Bitcoin into altcoins, and I think you're going to get that. I think you're going to see a rotation from the Bitcoin ETFs into the XRP ETFs when they launch. And I don't think anybody else has come out publicly and said that, but I'll go ahead and take that one. I think you're going to see a rotation from the Bitcoin ETFs into the XRP ETFs when they launch them. So anyway, those are the reasons that I think you could see XRP in particular move higher. And hopefully that's an explanation for you on how stocks and crypto are correlated. We got Cade Rodriguez. They say, what's up, brother? What jobs do you think will emerge post-blockchain tokenized world? And which ones will be phased out? Thanks for your time Monday and Wednesday. Absolutely. This is a good question. I would broaden that to AI. Because blockchain and the tokenization is really just one large database of value or data that an AI can analyze very quickly in a structured way. Like that is the reason for blockchain. Aside from transparency and immutability and transfer of value and all the other things that we want to use it for, AI using it as an aggregate database for structured data is a perfect use case. I think we're going to move into a renaissance. I think personal brand is going to be extremely important in the future. You see me out here. My team does a really good job of making me look good. I like doing this. They edit the videos and do all the cool stuff and make me look cool. So I think that's going to be pretty important moving forward. I think a lot of this 9 to 5 mentality from the previous industrial revolution is going to be wiped away. We've seen that happen a lot already with COVID and 2020 and decentralized work. People are working from home over Zoom calls, very different than in the office. I think that you're going to see a tick back toward the office in the near future. I think that that's going to come back. We've already started to see that a little bit. I can tell you that working in an office where people have immediate access to one another in an environment tends to generate better ROI on people's time. You feel kind of segmented and alone, and you can still get some of that feel over Zoom calls, but it's not quite the same. I think some days in the office and some days at home is probably how things shake out on that front. But a 9 to 5 like scheduled workday in factories, gone. I don't think that that's going to continue. I think that you're going to have there won't be like a standardized deal because everything's going to operate 24/7, 365 on a blockchain, right? Or at least the stock market's going to be 24/5 is what they said. So no weekends still, but 5 days a week, 24 hours. So very, very different, kind of like Vegas. I don't know if you've ever been to Vegas, but Vegas doesn't sleep. Be similar in that capacity. So I think that that's probably going to be one of the biggest changes is you'll see remote work and it'll be all hours. You've already seen people move offshore with a lot of like administrative tasks and labor. Temp agencies, big deal. You got VAs or virtual assistants, that are somewhere else in another country that do administrative tasks. A lot of things, and I think all these things are just going to continue to get exacerbated. You'll be able to find labor. So like the thing for Meta that I think is going to be interesting is some type of work marketplace that competes with LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn's a good resource for connecting with people and seeing their accolades for their like resume and their previous work experience. But as far as like job hunting, probably not that great. People reach out to you, recruiters do, but like if you wanted to bid for a job, there's gigs and stuff on like Craigslist. I think that you'll have something like that on Meta, where people will post jobs and there'll be a marketplace and you can bid for the opportunity to do that job or work. We'll see if it comes to that, but they've already got marketplace and some other things there. So I think that's kind of where it's headed. The days where people work for a company for 50 years and retire on a pension, I think that's gone. I think the whole paradigm that we've been taught by the boomers, my parents, I think that a lot of that's just going to be flipped on its head in the next 5 years. And hopefully you're ready for it. Hopefully you are doing and preparing to capitalize on it. We got XRP for me. They say, hey, Jake, from the land down under. All right. We got an Aussie. What's your thoughts on ETFs being approved by 21 of May and BlackRock coming in at the 11th hour? I think they're going to come in at the 12th hour. They're going to come in at the very last minute and throw it on the table. And that's when things are going to really explode for XRP. That's another thing I'm watching for. BlackRock ETF announcement. So anyway, yeah, I think that we could any day now that Paul's in, I think we got everything in place ready to go and they could do it at any time. We already got the first one through. And I'll say this again, I'm giving a lot of not financial advice tonight. If it were me, I'll say it that way. If I had positions in stocks in a self-directed 401k or IRA, I would be looking at that XRP ETF and seeing if my provider, Schwab, Fidelity, Goldman, wherever I had my money, Vanguard, I would be looking to make an allocation because I think that that's a huge opportunity for people to get in early and for them to do a futures 2 times leveraged ETF first. Highly unusual. Very, very unusual that they would approve that before the spot ETFs. So again, I think you're going to see a mass rotation from the Bitcoin ETFs into the XRP ETFs when they're launched. But if you can kind of front run that and get exposure to that, because up to this point, you've only had the ETP in Europe. This is the first regulated product aside from our Digital Wealth Partners, partnered with RDC to create the depository receipt against XRP. But this is the first regulated product that people can invest in an institutional setting with their qualified capital like that. So just something to look at. Again, if I had a 401k that I could still invest through, that's where I'd be looking. We got Brittany. Hey, ma'am. She says, thanks for providing great content. I feel like, what's the tiger? Frosted Flakes? Great. I don't know. Sorry. I understand Westland. West and you meet with Ripple employees regularly. I don't know who West is. And I'm curious to what they think price appreciation looks like. Anytime I ever mention higher prices to Ripple employees, they get quiet. And they smile. They don't say anything. They clam up. So sometimes people's reactions is better than them even saying anything. So yeah, that is what happens. Anytime I am talking to a Ripple employee or R3 employee and I mention, the reverse carry trade or anything that I'm like, crazy for thinking, they just, like that's their reaction. That's the face they make. So take that for what you will. Can you touch on the Circle Payments announcement? Yeah, so that's a big deal. Big deal. For them to have VASPs and be globally interoperable to settle through USDC, that tells me that stablecoin regs are very close at hand. And that we're very close to the implementation of real-time settlement and the launch of stablecoins at scale. For them to be announcing that today, again, with all the other things that happened today and transpired, yeah, I'm super bullish, super bullish on Hyperledger, the XRPL, XDC, all these. I got my XDC shirt on tonight. I don't hold anything else besides XRP. I've said that before, just my personal choice. Auto eliminate West End. Oh, okay. Yeah, we talked to Ripple and R3 and people on not every day, not every week, even, but on an infrequent basis. And they're nice enough to have us as well. We got Amber. She says, I'm fairly new to crypto and invested quite a bit into XRP. Very nice. Besides the reverse carry trade, do you see any other catalyst that could drive XRP beyond $100 this year? So thankful for your content. Implementation for settlement of Swift. So again, like everybody's like, they're not going to replace Swift. Swift is a legacy institution that's backed by the US government and like the dollar. They're not going anywhere, but they're going to need real-time settlement, and they want to remove the Nostro Vostro accounts. And that's the whole thing for XRP, right? Like that's the whole narrative up to this point. I think the long-term narrative is derivatives and the settlement of that and the back end of the stock market. But in the short term here, international settlement between counter currencies has been the whole thing, right? Like MoneyGram, that trial, settlement in Turkey or Zimbabwe or Argentina with inflationary currencies using ODL to do that. R3 Corda, Google it. This person's asked, what is R3? Anyway, so with that, just that implementation alone could drive XRP to $50 to $100 very easily. Just 1/10 of the settlement for the $5 trillion a day that moves through Swift. You got the FX market, which is 10% of that is run by SBI there in Japan, another big player that likely will be a instrumental piece of the XRPL's adoption and XRP. Yoshitaka Kitao is the principal there. Super bullish on XRP, posts about it all the time. If you don't follow him on Twitter, he's pretty adamant about the adoption of XRP. His timeline's been a little off. I have to give him some, heck about that because he said, by 2025 or by January 2025. We're a little late on that timeline, but that doesn't mean it won't happen. I think he's just a little early, maybe a couple months early. So anyway, yeah, I think this year's ETFs, there's so many other things besides the reverse carry trade, but the reverse carry trade kicks everything off, and that's what causes the perfect storm for the adoption of XRP and the very high prices that people want to see 3 and 4 digits versus just, most people think it's going to go to 10 to 13 bucks, which would be reasonable based on previous cycle history and the adoption curve and, rotation from Bitcoin into alts. All those dynamics have shifted this time though, because Bitcoin reached an all-time high because of the ETFs even prior to the halving. Very different cycle, irrespective of what anybody says. This time literally is different. So anyway, hopefully that answers your question. Thank you for the super chat and the support and being here on a Monday night, hanging out with all the peeps. We've got High Desert Dave. He says, enjoy the live shows. Thank you, brother. Appreciate the kind words. He says, my question is as follows. I'm assuming he says started transferring my XRP from Robinhood to my personal cold wallet, and now they've restricted your account. How much should I worry? If you're not doing anything nefarious, they're just going to hold it for whatever period they can. They don't want to move. So it's the same thing with asset managers. Like they don't want you to move assets off their platform because they make money. And if they have a run for the door, you are a creditor, right? Like you are a creditor of Robinhood and Uphold and Coinbase and all these other people. And if they don't have enough of the asset to cover your withdrawals because they've, done some fractional reserve stuff, not so good, but they do it, then they can't cover it. And so they will halt withdrawals. We saw that and not to say that Robinhood's in trouble. They probably aren't, but they do that pretty frequently. And that's why I don't use Robinhood. Not anything I would use for crypto personally. Stocks, cool. I actually don't even use Robinhood for stocks either. I use Webull. Because you can trade pre and post market, which you can't do on Robinhood. And that is where the majority of gains are made, or pre and post market. Like if you looked at the S&P 500 in 2020 and 2021, all of the gains were made pre-market and post-market, and the majority of the trading during the market when it was open, regular trading hours, was flat. So if you can't trade pre or post-market, like, and they know that, that's why Robinhood doesn't allow it. So anyway, don't really like Robinhood. I don't think you should worry though. They're a very big player. They're not going anywhere. It's not like they're going to go bankrupt and you're going to lose your coins or anything. I think they just have a lot of precaution when people start moving large amounts off of there. And I've heard other people say that too. But they unlocked it. You just provide them with whatever documentation they're asking for, and they should be remove the hold. Thank you for the super chat, and hopefully you get your stuff off there. We've got Nicole. Hey, ma'am. She says, hey, Jake, well wishes to you and your family. Thank you so much. Thanks for the fire tokenization video the other day. I appreciate that. She said you appreciate your leadership. That's very cool. Yeah, I spent a lot of time doing the research on that video. It was pretty cool. It was really cool for me because I got to see some stuff that I wouldn't have looked at otherwise. I got to see daily volumes on global markets, total assets for each one, broke those down, see which blockchains had, some traction. And I'll mention this, it's been enough time now. This is in no way, again, I'm just, no financial advice tonight. I am not a financial advisor. It's for entertainment and educational purposes only. Always consult with your financial professional before making any investment decisions. But one of the last things that I found when doing the research for that video, and I just had the random thought to think of this at the end, was insurance. And I looked up, which blockchains had traction in insurance or tokenization of insurance, because that's a huge use case. Like smart contracts in that capacity, whoever wins that, like it's an $8.21 trillion asset class. Like it's huge. And there's 3 to 5, the settlement volume on a daily basis isn't that big. It's only $3 to $5 billion, but it's still a lot of money moving, right? So if you garnered 10% of that, that's $300 to $500 million a day in volume across your network through the smart contracts for claims and premiums. And so the only blockchain that has any adoption for that asset class, they've tokenized $225 million in insurance, is Provenance. So that is a derivative of Cosmos, and the native token to that chain is called Hash. I let the mastermind know about this. It's the only thing that I've bought outside of XRP in 3 years, and I bought like a couple grand worth. So, do with it what you will. You can't find it anywhere. It reminds me of XDC when I bought XDC. XDC was 0.03 of a penny when I bought it. And it was in an obscure wallet that you had to buy some ETH and transfer it to and do some crazy stuff to convert it. This isn't listed anywhere yet. Hash is the token, SASH. You can only get it on Figure Markets and Osmosis are the only two like apps or exchanges. So again, not financial advice. Do not go buy it. I'm just some guy on the internet. I thought it was cool. It's interesting to me that they have the adoption that they have for that use case. It's probably going to go to zero and you shouldn't buy it. So anyway, the rest of your question says, in your opinion, how does the shutdown between the yuan, the showdown between the yuan and the dollar value play into the storyline for XRP? You need a way for fair trade and people to participate in the global economy without the threat of sanctions or tariffs or problems being imposed, right? And to do that, you need something that sits in the middle that can't be controlled or manipulated. SWIFT can be controlled and manipulated. And that's why the BRICS nations have created CHIPS, which is their own payment system, completely separate of SWIFT. They use it for BRICS Plus, which are all the nations that have aligned with BRICS that want to de-risk from the US dollar or no longer be associated because of the sanctions that were placed on Russia in 2021? Anyway, there was a ceasefire over the weekend here for Ukraine, which was cool, and Russia. But yeah, it's part of the global economic picture. The bigger thing for me is the yen versus the US dollar versus the yuan and the US dollar. but it's people jockeying for control and global dominance. In the future, there's not going to be one global reserve currency. There will be a basket of global reserve currencies. And I think the yuan is going to make up a bigger and bigger piece of that. They've actually done really well with all of the inflows from the money that has been provided to them by the U.S. government and all of the corporations here that have offshored our manufacturing to China. They've actually reinvested in their infrastructure and their people's education and a bunch of stuff there. You know, people can talk about communist countries. I don't really believe in that system either, but I can tell you what they've chosen to do with the money that they've received from the inflows and what they've been able to do has been actually pretty cool over the last 20 years for their people and the upgrading of their standard of living to pull themselves out of being a third world nation. So anyway, I don't think they're going to win. I think the US dollar is going to remain the majority of that basket. Our GDP far exceeds anybody else's. California's alone is like the 5th largest country in the world, just their GDP. And that's because we're a consumer-based economy. And it's also because the dollar is the global reserve currency. So that is going to shift some, but it'll be a level playing field, you know, and I think that the US will compete and do well, and we will continue to dominate in that capacity. But yeah, it'll definitely be a different world as this stuff gets rolled out. And I think that's why the US has been so delayed in their adoption of it and promotion of it. They wanted to make sure that they were the leader and that they were going to be the one to like regulate it and be the one that was going to, you know, control as much as they could. And I think the escrow for the XRPL and XRP and Ripple being here domestic in the US might have something to do with that. We got GI Kai. They say, what kind of timeline do you foresee with the integration of XRP crypto into our society as a whole? Also, excuse me, how could normal non-crypto people, could be impacted by this integration? Thanks for being awesome and God bless. Okay, so 2 questions. I'll tackle the first one first. Timeline for it being integrated. When everything burns down, they will use this to save the day. Like that's what's it's orchestrated. It's part of the deal. It's on the back end. There's a lot of stuff that hasn't been worked out yet, but that piece I'm pretty certain of. And people won't know. They won't care. It's in plain sight all the time. Fox News shows the Ripple logo and XRP all the time, next to all kinds of stuff. People don't even notice. It's just subliminal messaging. But yeah, it'll be integrated in society, and it'll be the back end system that value and data moves over, and people won't care. Nobody cares. Like, I don't care how my email gets to you. I just care that it gets to you. People won't care how their payment got to you as long as it settles real time and they're able to spend it and they get paid faster. Awesome. Like, that'll be the effect for the average person. And that's how they'll be impacted. They will get paid faster. They will be able to spend money faster. They will be able to send money home to their families faster without paying a bunch of fees. There won't be middleman raking fees in the middle of transactions for purchasing a home or stocks, and there may still be some fees, but they will be nominal in comparison to what they are today. And the frictions and time it takes to get deals done will move much faster. So that's how the average person will be affected, and they won't even notice it. There'll be a big calamity. There'll be a crisis. They will implement this a year from now. Like, people just move on with their lives. That's what people do. People die, bad things happen, and people think about it for a little while, and after 6 months or a year, they go back to their normal thing. That's just society. That's not good or bad. I'm just stating how things go. So anyway, yeah, we will remember it. People that are invested in it will for sure remember it, because it's going to change people's lives substantially. Not always for the better either. So maybe I'll touch on that. We're already like an hour and 10 minutes in. I'll probably hang out for another 20 minutes here, but I put out a newsletter the other day that talked about sudden wealth syndrome. Most lottery winners go bankrupt within 3 to 5 years. They win $100 million. You're thinking, how do you go bankrupt if you won hundreds of millions of dollars? Most people don't have much financial education. They're not surrounded by the right people that would be conducive for that to be managed and continue to prosper, right? If you build your wealth through a corporation or a company over a sustained period of time, it's likely that you have professionals in your network that can help you. Somebody that can mitigate taxes, a good CPA, you've got accountants, maybe you've got an investment advisor, you got somebody doing your estate planning, or can introduce you to somebody that has philanthropic guidance. You probably got somebody that can do bill pay for you, like all those things. And if you're just an average Joe that just happens to come into $100 million because you were smart and made a good investment, but you haven't taken the time to get the financial education to really understand what to do with it or how to steward that capital to make sure that it's used and kept and it doesn't cause you more problems than it's worth. It's not going to be all sunshine and rainbow. So I would, even if it's not us, even if it's not Digital Ascension Group, I feel like I've assembled the best people in the U.S. To be able to provide all those services I just mentioned, including the wealth management and the CPAs and, estate planners and tax attorneys and all that stuff. But I would advise you to just start putting people on your roster and start educating yourself so that you don't get steamrolled by anybody that is a shark on the other side of that, because that's what happens too, is people, when they see the money and they smell the blood, sharks come out. So hopefully you're aligning yourself with the right people before that happens, because for me, it's a foregone conclusion. Like XRP is going to be worth $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 in the next 3 to 5 years. And if you have a good chunk of it, you're going to need those professionals around you to make sure that you don't sign things that you shouldn't or get into trouble. So like I said, it doesn't have to be my team. I think we've done a really good job at curating that. But as long as you're looking for those people now before that happens, and you can find good, genuine people to help you, you're going to be in a much better position than most people that haven't had that forethought. So anyway, we'll go ahead and hop on to the next question here. Make sure I'm not missing any good ones over here on TikTok. You guys are always patient. I try to get through all the super chats over here on Twitter. I just had my Bitcoin stolen from my Coinbase wallet. Reach out. John Wingate is going to be at our event, and he helps people when their assets get stolen. He's able to track it and get it back for them. Sometimes he works with the FBI. He's going to be on our fraud panel. We got Frankie. They say, why did Ripple create such a large supply? It's a good question. And if XRP is being transferred between banks that turn fiat into currency and not held, how will it drive up the price? These are good questions, Frankie. So let's just take Bitcoin, for example. There's 21 million that's ever going to exist. They have a mining mechanism that releases more Bitcoin. So it's technically inflationary, but on a deflationary scale over time. It acts similar to gold, but it's got a low supply, 21 million in comparison to a lot of these other tokens that have billions in supply. You don't want a token to have to be worth $1 trillion to move value. It needs to be a reasonable price for banks and other institutions to be able to afford it. And so if you were creating something that was going to be a global asset to settle transactions on behalf of 8 billion people, 21 million really didn't make sense. Maybe 50 billion, like XLM, they burnt half their supply. Maybe that's reasonable. 10 billion. Well, I mean, that's like one per person. So that'd still have to be a really high value if you really broke it down. Like if you just divided up all the wealth globally, each person would have about $3 million. So 100 billion seems like a lot. Like when you look at it, you're like, man, that's a big supply. But in reality, if there are going to be moving value globally for all these different markets and for 8 billion people on the back end for financial institutions and markets and everything at scale, 100 billion really isn't that much. And then the other thing is like, how many sats or drops do you want to have, right? So when you break things down fractionally, do you want to have to go to like 1/1,000,000th of something in order to get to a penny? Probably not. That seems extreme. Like quant has like 18, sats or like drops or whatever the part of a quant is, decimal places in the code for value. The XRPL has 7, right? So down to a millionth of one XRP or one drop. And you could go down to a tenth of a drop in the code. That seems pretty reasonable for change. Like if you had to move some change in a transaction, makes sense. So that's why the supply is the way that it is, because there's drops of XRP that could be all the way down to a millionth of an XRP, and you could go down to a tenth of a drop. So like the max price for an XRP over the long term would be like 9,999,999. I don't think it'll ever get that high. I mean, I'm super bullish, and I still don't think it'll ever get that high. Maybe 6 digits, like Berkshire Hathaway stock type thing. Maybe, probably not. You just need so much transaction volume moving over it. You need interoperability between other planets and this world, and you would need metaverses and like all these other ecosystems and economies built out at scale with their own markets. That's a long, long time from now. But you need that forethought also, because those things could happen, right? So I think that they put a lot of forethought into minting the first 100 billion XNS is what it was called when it was minted, before it was rebranded as Ripples, and then XRP in 2014 after the IMF came out with their paper that talked about the exchange rate peg and had an abbreviation called XRP. Interestingly enough, Ripple rebranded that after meeting with the IMF. So anyway, I think that's why they minted 100 billion, is because it's a reasonable amount for the fractionalization down to a drop to be able to settle change in a transaction globally if it were adopted in that capacity. And then you asked about it transferring fiat currency and settling that and only being held for that duration, which is a really good point. If there's not people holding it and there's that much supply, like what would sustain the volume for that price? Well, you would need it to be adopted in a lot of different capacities and moving a lot of value to hold the value up that high. You need sustained volume over the network. And it would also depend on how much supply was available for the transmission of that value, right? So if they designated a tier 1 asset, people are going to hold on to it as collateral for derivatives and a lot of other purposes outside of just using it to settle transactions. Which is my thesis. I could be wrong, but that's my guess. And if you wanted to increase an asset's value on your balance sheet over the long term and borrow against it and refinance your debt, it's another really good reason to hold XRP and not put it onto the market. Same reason I think most retail people probably want to just borrow against their XRP instead of selling it, even if there is no cap gains. So fiat is another. It's interesting you mentioned fiat here, because right now that's exactly how XRP is used. They partner with Uphold to be able to settle transactions fiat to fiat, and they are the intermediary. But once you have stablecoins and CBDCs issued on blockchain or on the EVM, they will settle directly through XRP, and you won't need an intermediary for the fiat exchange like Uphold provides today. And so that piece, accompanied by the sustained volume for market transactions, you've got $5 trillion a day for SWIFT. You've got $6 trillion or $6.5 trillion a day for FX. You've got $500 billion a day for the back end of the stock market. You've got trade finance, which I think is going to be, XDC. You got the main thing over the long term is derivatives. And you can't quantify your exposure as an investment bank to derivatives unless you have some type of ledger mechanism that can actually show you that. You have quants and stuff that can run numbers, but they're guessing at best. The way I describe derivatives for people is like, let's say you're at the Super Bowl and you're in Vegas and you're betting, and your buddy, he's going to spot you $100 to bet. So you bet your other buddy $1,000. You leverage that 10x, but you're going to put that down that you borrowed from your buddy as the collateral, which is what banks do with treasuries. They rehypothecate the same treasury like 9 or 10 times. You borrowed that 100, you're going to put it down on this bet, you're going to take leverage on it 10x, and you're going to bet, this is how wild this gets, that the guy in front of you is going to punch the other guy when he loses his bet on this play because he said that there's going to be a foul for this reason. Like, that's how specific and nuanced and redundant and like compounded these derivative bets are, and they're doing that with collateral that's been borrowed. To be able to understand your exposure to that, you have to have smart contracts and blockchain, and that's what Codius was built for, which is the long-term play for Ripple, right? To quantify risk in derivatives and be able to settle those transactions, which at scale is quadrillions of dollars. Like, I don't know how to impress upon you the amount that's in the derivatives market. So anyway, hopefully that gives you a little bit better perspective on why they created such a large supply and what would cause people to hold the asset and cause for the price to appreciate because of the volume of transactions over the network. I rambled on a long time. We're going to try to run through the rest of these super chats. I am way up in the chat here, so I apologize if I quickly go through these. And I'll probably hang out a little later than I normally do just to make sure that we get through them. We have, hey Jay, how's it going? Armani says, thanks for the video on tokenization. Thank you. Very riveting. My wife-changing material. Very good. Thoughts on FXRP, FBTC remaining on Songbird after launch, moving Flare plus Songbird price. Yeah, I think that's what I've been waiting on the whole time, is if Hugo will actually launch the F assets, like, yeah, you're going to see significant appreciation in Spark and Songbird and all those. Until then, still probably going to be in the same spot it's at. We've got Zeus for Fox Knight. Interesting name. They say, could you shed some light on crypto life insurance integration? Much obliged. So I don't know if you're talking about the tokenization of these insurance policies or actually funding a PPLI policy with your crypto, but either or, like I talked about previous, Provenance is the chain that has traction for the tokenization of insurance, life insurance included. They have $225 million tokenized on their chain. Hash is the token. You can only buy it on Figure Markets and Osmosis. I should probably be an affiliate. I am not. It's just something cool that I found and bought some. Again, not financial advice. We're going to try to talk to their team. That's what I like to do. Like, when I find something cool and I want to work with some people and see what they're doing, I want to go talk to their team and see what they're actually doing and not just speculate on stuff because I read it on the internet like most people do. Separate of that, life insurance. So PPLI, we do private placement life insurance, and we move the crypto into that. It has to be structured a specific way. No more than 55% of the assets in the policy can be in one investment. We can use structured products and stuff like ETFs and, depository receipts and other things. Like, if you wanted to maintain complete exposure to XRP, we can still do it inside that policy. And same thing with Bitcoin. But you can trade tax-free inside that policy. You can borrow against the cash value of it as it depreciates. And you can take out reinsurance to pay off the debt so that those assets move back into your trust upon your passing, which is what the Rockefellers do. So the person that we have set that up used to work for the Rockefeller family office. Pretty cool. We've got Group 1 Gavin. What's up, man? He says, howdy, legend. Hey, brother. Your 1-hour video on tokenization was absolutely magnificent. Thank you. Appreciate all the kind words on that. I spent a lot of time on that. It's cool to hear the feedback, and thank you for the I'm always open to criticism too, because I'm always critical of myself. So thank you. Also love the interview with the fellow from Omni. Yeah, Austin King. He's going to be at our event in Vegas. If you guys want to meet him in person, super cool to have him there. What are your thoughts on CoinSpot here in Australia? Bye-bye, Charles Schwab. I don't know enough about it to answer the question. I wish I had more information or context. I try not to just talk out of my butt and like say things. I want to know if I'm actually going to comment on something, and I don't have enough information to tell you if they're good or bad or if I'm indifferent. So I apologize. I appreciate the super chat. and wish I had more information for you. Hey, you guys are awesome with the super chats. We got GI Kai. Oh, he already did this one. Always kicks me like further up in the chat when I get halfway down. Sorry, TikTok. I'm behind, and I'm gonna try to get through these super chats. We got Tom Dickerson. He said, "What is the minimum required to become a client with your company?" Depends on what you need, Todd. But if you are a family office client, around 20 million is the minimum threshold for where we start providing value there and start working with people on digital wealth partner side. So if you just want institutional custody, access to returns on your XRP, the ability to borrow against it, advisors, insurance on your XRP, beneficiaries and your spouse, and initial setup to be proactive to make sure that you're going to mitigate taxes and risk when you do make it big in crypto, that is $500,000. So when your assets appreciate to the $500,000 mark is when we can start to provide value for people in that capacity. We also have 100,000 XRP is the minimum as well. So, it's a little bit lower than the $500,000 mark, but that's where I hate charging people for things where I'm not providing them value, right? So until your portfolio is at that size, like we can hold it in institutional custody, but the fees associated with that are probably don't make sense. Right. So that's why there's that threshold. And again, there's some other reasons for compliance and things, but that's the minimum is around $500,000 or 100,000 XRP. We have Gregoros. I'm going to mess up your first name, brother. Thank you for the super chat. I'm sorry. I'm going to butcher it if I even say it or try to. He says, "Hey, legend, from Greece." Super, super cool to see you on here from Greece. Thank you for the super chat and being in here. He says, "I'd like your opinion on the price mentioned in Bitwise XRP investment guide on page 27, max bull scenario of $30 until 2030. Thank you so much." So I talked to Bitwise. I actually talked to their general counsel or somebody that used to be their general counsel earlier today. Sharp guys over there. I like Teddy and Hunter and Ryan. I think all of them are good people, good, genuine people. However, they are extremely focused on Bitcoin and ETH and have been for an extended period of time, and they have very vested interest in the success of those assets. Like a lot of these institutional providers don't see the big picture. I tell them my domino theory, and they go, "That actually makes a lot of sense." And then they start to second guess things. So they're very focused on what makes money today. And they don't understand the actual institutional adoption of this asset, or maybe they do, and they're like lowballing it to, not drive hype, or, set themselves up for success with a big winner. Bitwise has an XRP ETF. So when they knock it out of the park, they'll be like, "Hey, even better than we thought," under promise, over deliver. So I don't know which one of those it is. But I like those guys over there. I think they're good people. And again, like, people talk their book. So you just have to be aware, right? I try to be on my sleeve, come on here and talk to you guys and be real. But a lot of people out there are going to be, I don't want to say nefarious. That's not the right word, but like in their own self-interest. Oh, man. Thank you, Hunt. Wow. Thank you for the super chat. They say, "Big fan, Dallas local." Awesome, brother. Hopefully we'll see you this week there at the Mastermind event here in Dallas. He says, "Does Carbon One have the owner agreement, the operating agreement you mentioned in the last live, or is it in Carbon 2? Can you explain how your firm is better set up to file the Wyoming LLC better than other attorneys online?" We've done 700 of these LLCs specifically like this. We've sought out other legal counsel and got multiple opinions. We use them to draft the operating agreement. So this is how I view my role. Okay. I go find all the best people, right, that are mostly inaccessible for the average person. I did really well in 20 and 21 in crypto. And so I've got enough stuff that I can go have these conversations with people, and they'll give me the time of day. And so with that, I try to take what they have and partner with them and curate stuff, and then make that affordable for the average person. Like that's what the whole digital family office and digital ascension group deal is. We are taking something like a multifamily or a single family office. You normally have to have at least $100 million, probably more, to really run an effective one, because it costs you somewhere between $1 million and $2 million a year to have the right professionals manage your portfolio specifically. Okay. So could probably more than that, depending on how you compensate your CIO. So with that, I try to take all of those benefits and high costs and then break that down to something that's affordable or much more affordable for people. And it's a business, right? So we've done that with the LLCs. Again, we've sought out other legal counsel. We have tax attorneys and estate planners who have reviewed how we're doing it, and we're doing it as good or better than they are for half the price. And so that's, why I think we're good. You could absolutely go get your own attorney to file it and draft your operating agreement and do all the stuff, but also they're not going to be, I can tell you this. There was an attorney I used to work with in the beginning before we started doing this that would just give people a template for an operating agreement that didn't even have anything. It was $800 for that. No. There needs to be specific clauses around crypto and how it's managed and your foresight and security and a bunch of other things listed in the agreement, and how you're going to manage other alternative investments through your management company. And that's why you're utilizing this corporation in order to manage those assets. It's not just a trading. And you're going to talk to a lot of CPAs or accountants or attorneys that are going to make it a trading LLC. And you don't want that, because then you can't use CapEx or long-term capital gains. You're going to be stuck with short-term capital gains on everything. So we've been doing it for 4 years. Wow, to say it. We've been doing this for 4 years. So I would say we are, not to toot my own horn, but the expert at setting these up. And again, we've done more than anybody else in the world. Wow, that sounds weird to say that, but it's true. I don't know anybody else that set these up at the scale that we have. So anyway, that's my sales pitch. Again, welcome to go get your own attorney in Wyoming to set it up. There are a few that we could recommend to you if you'd like to have a conversation with them. But yeah, looking forward to seeing you here in Dallas, and thank you again for the super chat. Hunt, again, can you give a brief outline about the benefits of the digital family office? You guys are hitting me with some good ones, and they're late in the night. So I kind of broke this down when you asked the previous one. I talked about, a single family office and the cost to run that. So we run a virtual family office. We really offer all three, depending on what your net worth is. We do not have any clients that are over the 100 million currently, full disclosure, but we do have all the services required to provide what they would need at scale. So concierge service, concierge medical service, private security, brokers and managers for your real estate, jets and yachts, toys, whatever else you want, private credit, banking relationships, M&A attorneys, business attorneys, tax attorneys, have all of them in our network. So whatever you need, we're just one phone call away. And we have a manager that would be specific to your account. They'll handle all the coordination of that. We have the underlying software and infrastructure so that you can manage all your documentation and communications with the different professionals. It's through an absolutely secure channel, all registered on blockchain with multi-factor authentication for anybody to access it. And we also have other partnerships for the reporting and the accounting and all of the other things required in order to operate at a high level. And you get discounted rates on all of that because you're part of our firm. And we are able to provide that in a white labeled solution that you're not going to get anywhere else. So just cost benefits for aggregating, we've got close to 300 million AUM right now, 9 family offices we consult for, close to 640 clients at the RIA, close to 100, more than 100 million XRP at this point. So Anyway, a lot of benefits. And again, happy to talk with you if you want to email info@digitalfamilyoffice.io if you are over that $20 million mark. We already ran through this one. Make sure I didn't miss any here. We got Wayne again. He says, Tony the Tiger, thank you. I could not think of it earlier. I will be using Anchorage through Digital Wealth Partners to custody XRP. Will taking the XRP off the exchange help it appreciate? I don't think so. It's on the same network and ledger. I wish it did. It doesn't go up when you put it in Anchorage. But I appreciate the enthusiasm. Couple more super chats here. We got Deeks says, hey legend, from old Blinky in Great Britain. Thanks for your advice and help. Looking forward to PA on price appreciation on Hash. What time frame do you think price? It's going to be a while. Hash is one of those, like, once we get a listing on other exchanges and it is adopted in the capacity I think it will be, and for actual use for, tokenization of insurance, it's going to take a while. It's not like an overnight thing. Probably 4 or 5 years is. I don't make any investments unless it is going to be for 4 or 5 years. So just to kind of give you forethought there. Appreciate you on the super chat. Spencer says, best books or podcasts for crypto and future money. Think and Grow Rich. The future is faster than you think. Web3, Warren Buffett, Web3 World. The Family Office book. Wealth and Numbers, our book, if you want to syndicate deals. I don't know if that's specifically, crypto based. And then this is one that I'm still reading that's really good. It's borrowed from your grandchildren. So lots of books that I would highly recommend that. Like, if you could just spend your time reading books, that's probably the fastest way to aggregate knowledge. I drink my books. I like to say. I listen to audiobooks using Audible. Some of those are not on Audible. And that's why I have the physical copy. Excuse me. Golly. Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. Another really good book as well. Let's see. Almost to the bottom here. We got Mitho Nelson. They say, thoughts on Amazon Ripple partnership? Guaranteed. I can't say guaranteed. Highly likely. Let's see here. Lil PP. God, with the name. Hey Jake, love you, man. Is your team ready to take on many customers if XRP were to skyrocket? Can a DC pension be withdrawn? I work in a union. It's gonna be hard, man. You'll have to quit or get fired. It'll be about the only way you can get that pension. And it's going to have to be under specific circumstances. They got a lot of bylaws and stuff within that. I would recommend talking to whoever your advisor is at the pension and work through something if you do want to do that. And your first question here, doing the best I can. So we've already got 600 clients under management. My advisors are my advisors. Our team is already stretched pretty thin. I have 4 more advisors coming on in May. One of our guys just, Sebastian, if you're watching or watching this later, congratulations on passing your Series 65, brother. Excited to have you as an advisor. But we got 3 more people coming on with their Series 65s. I got one more guy taking it tomorrow who used to have his Series 7. I got another guy that you guys know, like, and love that's going to take his 65 that'll come on in late May. And then another gentleman that's going to take his May 6th. So all these people are not previous advisors that we're hiring, but they're crypto native people that understand digital assets, that want to be an advisor and have some financial background, right? So over the long term, I've actually started engaging with a firm that helps scale teams very quickly that need that to happen if they have enough demand. And so yes is the answer. We will be able to take on a lot of clients. We're building the infrastructure, systems, SOPs, operations, all the stuff to be able to do that at scale. And I'm doing that now because I feel like that's probably going to happen sooner than later. Do we have any more super chats? We got a couple more. We got Rob Searle. He says, "Hey Jake, thanks for the content. I find it very informative. Very good. Thank you. Very encouraging. That I'm glad for that. Appreciate you being here." He said, "I thought I saw a video in which you said you had purchased something other than XRP. Did I misunderstand?" No, that was what I was talking about earlier. Hash SHSH. Again, this is not a promotion for that token. It's not financial advice. It's just the first thing that I've seen that I would have similar ROI to XRP if it were to get adopted at scale. And so that's why I was like, all right, it's worth a couple grand. We'll throw it over here and we'll see what happens. It could go to zero. I'm not advocating for it, but I feel like I just want to be transparent with people, right? And if I say I'm all in on XRP, I want to be all in on XRP, and I am all in on XRP except for the $2,000 that I put over there, and I sold my gold the other day. So back into silver and bought more XRP also. So anyway, yeah, thank you for the super chat, and hopefully that's helpful. Again, like if you want to go look it up, it's Provenance blockchain, and hash is the token. Charles says, "Jake, when do you see BlackRock ETF announcement? One day after the official case settlement?" Before the case settles, I think we'll have a BlackRock ETF. Not SASH, hash, HASH. Sorry. Can't talk. It's late. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you all for watching. If you do want to join the mastermind and participate in our events in the near future, we got one here in Dallas this week on Wednesday. We got the other one in Vegas the week of XRP Vegas there on a Wednesday. Promise you won't want to miss it. They're going to be awesome. Over 100 people already registered for both. Awesome people going to be there. People that you want to meet and see, guarantee it. If you do want to be a part of that community, you can just go to beyondbroke.com and use the code BeyondBroke 1 month or 1MO, get you a free month there in the group for both social or Carbon One. The other thing I'd like to mention before I let you guys go is the LLCs are going to go up in cost. They're going to $2,000 per LLC on the 28th. So this is the last week that we will be offering the 50% off promotion. So if you do want to go ahead and lock that in, and you're going to get all the benefits that we're going to be offering everybody after the $2,000 increase with the virtual office and some of the other bank forms, you can just go to digitalfamilyoffice.io, go to the LLC section in the services, and put in the code 50OFF, 50OFF, DAG Normally $3,000. We do it for $1,500 for the people to watch this and for the mastermind. Again, that's registered agent, EIN, articles of organization, certificate of good standing, step-by-step process to move your assets into the LLC, the operating agreement to be able to do everything that you need to with a holding company that manages your digital assets, a video on how to set up a bank account. And like I said, we will get you a virtual office and some other forms as well in the near future. So with that, I hope you'll have a wonderful evening. Happy Monday. Hope you guys have a wonderful week, had a wonderful Easter, and we will see you guys on the next one.